Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to this session, the second session of the year. Am I audible well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? I don't need to put on my headphones, which I don't like. I hope so.
No, ma'am, it's clear and audible.
Yeah? Good. So, for those who have joined us today for the first time, a very happy new year. I can see quite a few people who are not there last time and I've joined this time. So, a very, very happy new year to you all. We had a wonderful session with Dr. Meenakshi last time, and the topic was matrix. And coming to today, we have another interesting session. So, I would like to share why this topic came to me. Now, all of you all will feel cervical spine mobilization is going to be topic call is, sometimes it happens, and many of the times I hope you all can share what my feeling is, that when one patient comes, suddenly 3 4 of the similar type come in a sort of a crop of patients, or a crop of conditions comes together. So this is exactly what happens with me. And then I feel, okay, in Vadala I've seen this patient, and in Hiranandani I've seen that patient, and in Vashi there is this patient. So that's exactly what happened with this cervical spine. And I felt that we should be sharing a little bit or walking the way. It will be a good educative experience to me to educate myself on the cervical spine and share with all of you all the different learnings what our patients are giving us. So the first of the whole lot who came was Nandita, whom we'll be sharing next time with y'all. And we had three more patients of different categories in one of our clinics in Navi Mumbai. For those of you all are not from Mumbai, so we had 3 or 4 patients who were of a different type, and then we felt that cervical spine has a lot for us as therapists to offer, and that's where we came across and we said, okay, let's keep cervical spine as a topic. So just pardon me, Mihika and the group. I will go to this because I could not merge my presentation with the. So it'll be done in two parts. So whatever I made on my slides will go as my slides. So this is cervical spine in pediatrics, movements and implications. Okay. Now I would like to ask you all, what are your thoughts on cervical spine movement in children? When do you think that children start moving their neck? Sagittal plane, coronal plane, transverse plane. If not, you're going to read and come back to me. I'm not going to give you all the answer. I'm not able to hear anything. Mandar, am I not audible?
And you're audible. Mandar, have you tried connecting your audio? If you've forgotten that, please do that.
You all can. Okay. You all still in a thinking mode? Why are you all not putting it on the chat? When do you all think you all see movements in a cervical spine? In the womb? Okay. Good, Arya. Arya Shikha, this is Shikha Arya, not Tar Arya. So, as therapists, why is everyone quiet, or you all have not got the question? What I'm trying to ask, when the topic for the day, and I explained the story behind the topic, I hope everyone is with me. Just raise your thumbs if you are with me, or if you all are disappeared, just putting your names on. Did you all get the background of the topic, girls and boys? Yes. Why the topic is being there? Why are we talking of cervical spine? Did you all get that? Only Shikha is answering, no one else. So, yes, thank you, Meera. Finally, one thumbs up. So, now my question to you all is, when do you all see the cervical spine movement in an AP plane, in a sagittal plane, coronal plane, and transverse plane? When do you all start seeing? Any takers on this? If not, we have to discuss it next. We are going to do it in 2 parts because we felt there was lot to offer. So it will be part 1 today and part 2 next Wednesday. Okay, so that's what we are going to do, and there is going to be a few, work up for you all to be done when you all go back and come back to us next Wednesday. So if you all are not transverse plane first, sorry, no Shikha.
Ma'am,
Yes.
sagittal plane, initially when the baby starts initiating neck holding.
Okay, so Arya was good. Shikha Arya was right when she said that movement starts in the womb. But there are two aspects to every movement we know. Either we are active or we are passive. Like most of you are passive today in the meeting. All of you all are not active. Only Shikha is active. So you have active range of motion and you have passive range of motion. So the passive range of motion starts in the womb. What you mean by passive is the baby is kicking with the legs, the baby is moving around, and the baby is developing movements of the spine. Got it? So he or she is not moving the spine. Slowly later on in the last trimester, the head and the neck starts in anticipation of coming out of the cervix into the world. So that's when the cervical spine movement starts coming in. Okay, so when you all think of passive movement, yes, passive movement starts in the womb. The active movement in the cervical spine starts when the child is maybe around dash dash months old. That's a question for you all. And what is it that triggers the cervical spine movement? Which comes in? Extension comes in, flexion comes in. See, so much to learn. Simple questions I'm asking you all. Nazli is saying flexion. Tanya is saying flexion.
Ma'am, extension comes first in the first 10 days.
Yes. So thank you. It is extension which comes first. And why does it come first? Because the adductors of the scapulae squash the scapulae when the baby is in the supine position. This leads to a little bit of flicker of extension which comes into picture. Okay. All of you all adduct your scapulae and see if you are in flexion also. If you adduct your scapulae, you get extension of the cervical spine, and that's exactly what happens in a baby. Not that much amount of extension, Nazli. A little bit happens, just a wee bit, maybe in the range of 5 degrees or something, that starts coming into the baby, and then the shoulders start coming into action. So it is completely related to your scapulae, your shoulder girdle, how your cervical spine moves. So that's the movement at it as it comes in. We'll discuss about that a bit next time more. Coming to our talk today. So when do you see the first movements in the cervical spine? That was my question to you all. And many a times you assume that we know that it is flexion, extension, rotation, and lateral flexion which come in, or a composite form of movements which happen when the baby, I mean most of our babies don't do it. People who go for walks in the morning, they do this composite movements. You see the mata coming into them in the morning, and that is not to be done. So the first movement is extension, giving rise later on when the chin tuck starts coming in at maybe, which you are seeing this baby doing in this picture, is at around 4 months. So when your chin tuck starts coming in at 4 months, that time your flexion starts. So extension going rise to flexion. So if you see a baby, when a mother is carrying the baby, the neck drops into flexion. There is no movement of the child in flexion. The neck drops. But children who have a fusion of C1, C2, which they are born with, they will not show this flexion. They will keep their cervical spine straight. Their shoulders will be up there. So if you see that the child is not dropping the head in flexion, you have to think why. Keep asking yourself this question why when you see something which is going against the atypical. So coming to some facts which we should know as therapists, at birth the brain is typically 25% of the adult size. Okay, although the body weight of the newborn is only 5% of the adult weight. कितना संभालना पड़ता है बोझ, imagine 25% of the adult size, and the baby has to balance that on the cervical spine. Half of the postnatal growth of the brain volume occurs in the first year and attains 75% of the adult size by the end of second year. So we are carrying too much baggage in our neurons and also on our cervical spines. So now coming to the anthropometrics a little more in detail, the head is 1/4 the total body length, whereas in adults it is 1/7. The articular facets of the infant and the young children are oriented in an even horizontal direction than in an adult. It is 60 degrees at 1 year, 53 degrees at 3 years, and 47 degrees at 6 years. These are basic facts. Of course, many people may not appreciate facts, but they are important if you're a physiotherapist who is going to look at children coming to you in the early stages of life. Now, looking at the part which is called as the cervicocranium, which is the base of the skull, C1 and C2 and C2 and C3. The disc is distinct unit in infants and small children and should be considered as a very specialized area of the cervical spine because of the anatomical differences from the lower and more uniformly shaped vertebrae. Using dynamic cervical spine radiographs, it has been shown that the fulcrum for flexion is at C2 to C3 in infants and young children, and at C3 and C4 at the age of 5 or 6, and C5, C6 in adults. So you see how the center of mass, as the child goes into extension, pushes on the hands, tries to turn, tries to go from your sagittal coronal to your transverse plane, plays between the movements, it changes. Okay, so that's how the fulcrum shifts. Early in infancy, the baby can raise the head while in prone, and the cervical neck curve becomes well established as the head is held erect and cervical muscles become developed and increase their tone activity. So you need good amount of tone. Children who have low tone, children who have high tone, all have issues with their cervical spine mobility. They compensate in one form or the other. So whenever there is excessive mobility in one region, you see low mobility in the other region. So if you have excessive mobility in your cervical spine, you will have your the thoracic spine kyphotic or rounded, where the child will not exhibit any movements. If you have less movement in the cervical spine because of fusion, automatically the child will have more mobility in the thoracic spine. If you have fixed spine everywhere, then it's a different thing altogether. So by third or fourth month, the infant can sit with support, and by seventh month, he can be expected to sit alone. At 8 or 9 months, the infants can stand with support and then can stand without assistance by 10 to 14 months. All of us as pediatric therapists know it, but do keep in focus that we are talking of the cervical spine when we are talking about this development. So just envision or imagine how your weight shifts give rise to good cervical movements or mobility, and how the child, once he goes from cephalic to caudal, we say that, but when we say the work happens proximal and distal, the sequence of the development is everywhere. It is not proximal to distal. There is a backward thrust onto your proximal which comes from your distal. Okay, so cephalocaudal to cephalic. Which are the units? What are the units? What you say when you look at a cervical spine? Definitely, we see the spine itself. So you have bones. You have the muscles which go around the spine. You have the ligaments which hold the entire spine in place. Very important, which I realized in one of the cases which we'll be discussing next time, is the vascular system. Very important. The cervical spine carries a lot of, it is enriched and it carries, or it is the interface where the vascular supply is going to the brain. Okay, so that's very important to realize. And last but not the least is the nerves. I think Umaira and Gurpreet have missed a lot which was interesting. So I think that that's where I stopped with the share which we had made, which I had made today morning. You see, my inspiration comes last minute. Many a times I hello, please speak yourself.
Sarah, please mute yourself.
So should I share, Mihika?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So these are the references which we'll be giving to you all before starting the talk, and coming to the development of the cervical spine a little bit. Embryologic development of the cervical spine may assist in understanding the apparent pseudo alignment or offset phenomena. The vertebral bodies of C1 and C2, as I mentioned earlier, have a unique embryologic origin and function, and development of fetal vertebral column is initiated in the third week of development, at the time which mesenchyma forms somites surrounding the neural tube. These somites then form sclerotomes, with the first cervical sclerotome forming C1, that is the atlas and the dens, and the second cervical sclerotome forming the remainder of C2. Most of the head rotation happens at C1, C2 via the dens. Pardon? Present mode, okay. Latifa is telling present mode. How do I go to present?
Upper right hand side corner, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm joined in this talk by Dr. Sukanya, and I'm very happy to welcome her. So, Sukanya, you want to go with this? You want to speak on what something interesting what we had spoken yesterday?
Ma'am, should I start from the biomechanics from the next two slides?
Yeah. Should I then take this up?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the first two cervical vertebrae are so you have typical vertebrae and you have atypical vertebrae. So the first two cervical vertebrae are very unique in their development. The ossification centers of C1 are with open synchondriosis. So there's only one good article for your reference which you all can read, which is provided, which we could look through and which we can share with people who are really interested in understanding cervical spine more, was a radiographic analysis of pediatric cervical spines, which was given in one of the journals, radiography journals. The ossification centers of C2 with open synchondrosis, 4 ossification sites at birth. Okay, so these are the two cervical vertebrae which are very unique in their development. Now, how can you say, why do you say that pediatric spine is different? We spoke about it in the first. Isha, Umaira, and the third person has missed this, so we are not going into details of that. We were saying that pediatric spine has a different fulcrum. Why? We saw how it was different. There's a relatively large size of the head to the body. This leads to a higher fulcrum, leads to a higher cervical. So people who feel macrocephaly hai, yeah, yesterday some kid walked in and someone said macrocephaly, and I actually wanted to understand how do you all call the child macrocephaly. You have to look at the size of the child and compare the size, the height compared to the head. Okay, so relatively larger size, anyways it is a big head which they are born with. I mean, kids are small relative to their body, the head is big. This leads to higher cervical spine level of injury. They have a elastic or a flexible spinal column. Why? Because they have to come out through the birth canal, right? They have to go into flexion, push themselves and come out. So that is the area which is maximally at force, which has to be used. At the same time, it has to be mobile. The spinal column can be distracted 5 centimeters without structural injury, and this is something we have to keep in mind when we are mobilizing a child for torticollis. Okay, very important fact is that spinal column can be distracted by 5 centimeters without a structural injury. Actually, the spinal cord cannot. So leading to spinal cord injury, which we have seen in few of our children happening, which we will be discussing. So imaging the bones may not be good enough. poor musculature, all of us know cervical spine musculature is not very great because we don't exercise, number one, and children also don't exercise the cervical musculature more. The immature spine is hypermobile because of ligamentous laxity and weak musculature. To add to it, if we have issues like the child is a preterm, it is a great comorbidity which the child will have, because he or she will be in the NICU with lot of tubes on one side, and the child's neck or the cervical spine many times is placed at such a risk that when they come to us, the parents say वो तो ऐसे ही रखता है because there has been a positioning in the NICU which has been there. Sukanya ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So then we go on to the open ossification tech centers. They can make interpretation of the images more challenging. Okay. So now we go on to C1 and C2. Okay. So as we all know that C1 has a ring-like structure. Okay. So they have 3 ossification centers which do not fuse till 7 years of age. Now all these things are quite important since we treat most of the kids which come to us with torticollis in early infancy. Okay. And then when we go on to C2, it has got 2 ossification centers that again don't unite till 5 to 7 years of age. Okay. And thus kids have more of growth plate injuries. Then the third reason is horizontally oriented vertebral facet joints and physiologic wedging anteriorly of the vertebral bodies. Okay, so because of this, there is greater incidence of dislocation in between C1 and C2, which you must have seen with kids with Down syndrome mostly. Okay, because there is lot of hypotonia that is present, there is lot of laxity of the ligaments that can be seen. So now as the age advances, your cervical spine matures more, the child matures more. So then the fulcrum goes on changing. So now as ma'am explained to us about the weight shifts and normal development of the cervical spine, the fulcrum in a small baby, it is at C2, C3. Okay, then by 5 years of age, it goes till C3, C4. By 10 years, it goes till C4, C5. And in a big adult, it goes to C5, C6. Okay. Now, the understanding of fulcrum is quite important for us because the biomechanics of the spine is most of the times altered in the patients we see. And most of you must have seen that there is hyperextension at the cervical spine and there is flexion at the lower cervical spine. Okay, next. Now, so much we spoke about the development of the cervical spine. So what are the major structural changes that you see in a child from he grows up from a small age to a big adult? Okay, so we look at the facet joints. They are more shallow and more horizontal. The ligaments and the capsule, they are more stretchable without tearing. Okay, and then comes the uncinate process, which is absent in children. Okay, vertebral bodies are wedge shaped. Okay, spinous process is less developed. Because of that, the ranges of flexion and cervical extension also change in a child as compared to a big adult. So when you mobilize a child and a big adult, your mobilization, placement and everything changes with that. This is the importance. Now we would be going upon the actual biomechanics. Okay. Disorders we shall be covering up in.
I'll just talk about this. Disorders can come to you in types and they may not be necessarily from the textbook. It is just that you may see a tilt of the child. The child may come to you with a limb length discrepancy which is not at all related to the cervical spine. He or she may come to you with a respiratory problem. He or she may come to you with something which is as irrelevant as weakness in the upper extremity, which is of course relevant because it may come from the nerves. And you have to look at how any situation where you're seeing a little bit of an alignment issue, the structures which we had described earlier. It could be the bones, it could be to do with the muscles, it could be to do with the circulation, or it could be the nerves. That is, there may be sensory loss. It could be respiration because cervical spine is directly connected there. It could be something to do with vision also. So of late, I have seen a crop of kids who have come to us with problems which are not related directly to the cervical spine but have their root cause in the cervical spine. So we have had kids who had come to us with a query spastic diplegia, and she had come to us toe walking. Then everyone of us felt okay, but I felt something is wrong in her, and it's not seemingly that she's showing to me a very classic spastic diplegia. After a few days, she started developing weakness in the right upper extremity. So everyone felt नहीं वो asymmetric diplegia हो सकती है. Then I asked for an MRI immediately, and there was a problem which was seen in her cervical spine, which she had to get operated ASAP. So you can see, and that's why as therapists, whenever we are looking at children, don't take it for granted or don't set brackets and treat them. Always keep your minds open to understand what the root cause could be and what you can do with the child. So these are the common ones which we know. They could come as skeletal dysplasia. I hope you all have seen these cases. Osteogenesis imperfecta, rickets, all of us know. We have cases of spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia with us. We have seen achondroplasia, or that is a dwarf, children who are small in heights. Osteogenesis imperfecta, I hope you all know children with brittle bones. Neurofibromatosis is a condition in which nerves have tumors. Rickets, diastrophic dysplasia, connective tissue syndromes, Marfan's in which the length of the hands is more than the legs, Down syndrome very important. So in recent past or maybe few years back, I had seen a child. Most of the parents, they feel that once the kid is walking, his work is done, no need to go and see a physiotherapist again. The child may be intellectually not performing well, they chalega, kuch na kuch kar paega. So this child was referred to me by one of my mentors. She was from one of the western suburbs in Mumbai, and she developed sudden weakness, and she was a case of Down syndrome. She had a history of fever. Everyone felt GBS hai, but it was not GBS. It was not GBS because her EMG nerve conduction studies were normal. So then the local doctor was query kya ho raha hai, immediately asked for a cervical spine. It was a dislocation at the C1 C2 atlantoaxial dislocation, very common in Down syndrome, very common. So we have to be ultra careful and alert when we are seeing kids with Down syndrome. Especially tell the parents that these kids develop dislocation, subluxation. So I asked her, what were you doing? So it seems she was playing tennis or badminton, I don't recollect what, with someone where she jerked herself, and that's what led to the injury of the cervical spine. So no high impact sports in Down syndrome kids. You have to be very careful even as they mature, they grow into adolescence. So any kid, a small infant coming to you with Down syndrome, please tell the parents that as they grow in age, in adolescence, more so the cervical spine has to be nurtured and taken care of well. You may have kids who come to you with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, may show problems with the cervical spine. And of course, storage syndromes, metabolic syndromes, there are n number of them, also can show problems with the cervical spine. Oops, sorry. Okay.
So we move on to the biomechanics of the cervical spine. So I would like to just ask you all that what kind of motion takes place at C1 and C2. We'll start with the mobility first and then the muscles later. Mobility at C1 and C2? Nodding, yes, that's right. And rotation takes place at? Rotation takes place from?
Yeah, they're putting in the chat box rotation, nodding, rotations,
Yes, ma'am.
rotational motion.
Yeah. So I would just like to clear on this. At C1 and C2, there's just nodding movement that takes place. Rotation takes place from C2 onwards. Okay, so rotation takes place C2 onwards, and you get about 55 to 58% of rotation in between C1, C2, and rest of it is in the lower cervical spine. But nodding is one thing that is present in between your condyles and your C1. Okay, yeah. Then we go on to the importance of the kinetics and kinematics. Okay, so when we understand the kinetics, it's all about the shear forces, compression forces, and rotational forces that you see on a cervical spine. Okay, translational, shear, and compression forces. Why are these forces so important? Can anyone tell? The importance of shear forces? So Dr. Arya is saying for the smooth translation of the vertebrae during movement. All of you feel like that? What do shear forces cause?
Understand what is a shear force? Can anyone speak on shear force? I think that's common knowledge, common sense for all of us. What is a shear force? Shear, I mean, I dealt with types of forces which are happening and what we encounter, traction. I hope you know all that.
When,
What is a shear force?
yeah. So when one object moves on the other and translates it.
I can't hear. Is someone saying something?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Milika just said that when one object translates on the second object, it is a shear force
Yes.
that's created there.
Yes. Yes. Good.
Yeah. Okay. So now when we see most of our kids with cervical hyperextension, where do you see the shear forces more? Posteriorly or in the front anteriorly? Any answer randomly. It's fine to go wrong. That's okay.
Posterior.
Anterior.
How many of you say anteriorly? You can raise hands. It's okay.
See, let's learn together. It's okay. See, now you all are understanding that how important cervical spine is
So
as
it
compared to
depends
what you
upon
all
which
thought.
movement.
It depends upon.
Which movement? If it is flexion, then the lower vertebra goes posteriorly and the upper moves to anterior. And if it is
So,
extension,
yeah. Again, I say when there is hyperextension at your cervical spine, hyperextension, then the shear forces are more anteriorly
anterior.
or posteriorly.
Anterior.
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 Anyone who says the posterior,
Anterior.
so it's anteriorly. Okay. So now when there are so much shear forces anteriorly, your posterior muscles and all your posterior structures, your capsules, your ligaments are so important because they will combat your forces anteriorly and they are going to overact, and there's going to be less work of your core muscles at the spine. And
Yes,
this
so much
is why
weight.
we need to know the muscles of the spine, and we need to know all these muscles to get stability at your cervical spine. Okay. Now, one more thing that I would like to ask you all is how do you
Can I
think that the
add on, Sukanya,
yes,
something in this?
yes,
When
ma'am.
you're
Yes.
talking of the cervical spine, so of late I've been studying the cervical spine a lot, and also when we understand, all of you all know the whiplash injuries which happen, right? So in US there is a law which states that the kids are to be put into the car seats. In India, kids are usually carried on the mother's lap. But in US it's not allowed. It is unlawful. The kid has to be put into the car seat, and they have good support which is given to them. Now we have to understand that what she was talking as a shear force, there is a lot which happens in the cervical spine, especially it stabilizes when your rotational component comes into picture. So hyperextension or extreme flexion can generate a shear force and can be injurious to the child, to a baby. But as the child grows in age and develops the stability of the cervical spine, maybe by 8 to 10 years they come near normal to the adult sort of parameters. That is the time when they have, okay, we can say that it is less fatal. But she has written here, trauma below 8 years, C3 and above, high risk of fatality, and above 8 years is low risk of fatality. That's because your shear forces are balanced because of the muscles having been in a particular angle, or the way in which they are stabilized over the shoulder. So your shoulder girdle stability, the muscles which support your trunk definitely play an important role, which comes after 8 years of age. Over to you, Sukanya. Sorry, I jumped in. I just felt like saying, because I felt they were not able to visualize what we were
Clearly
trying to tell
understand
them.
the forces. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah. So we move on to the muscles of the spine. Okay. And the ligaments of the spine. So these two ligaments I will talk about when I talk about the structural parts of the spine. Can we please move on to the next slide so that you all can see visually? Okay. How much ever you all know? Can you just tell me vaguely which muscles of the cervical spine do you know? Ignore all this. Ignore this chart. Don't look at this right now. Okay. Vaguely, if you can tell me which muscles do we know anteriorly, which muscles do we know posteriorly, and which muscles do we know laterally? Because we would be looking at cases like torticollis, so that would be quite important to divide all this into some compartments: anterior, posterior, and lateral. Even if one, two muscles are okay, you can just name them. That's it.
So when I think of torticollis, Sukanya, I can think of trapezius, I can think of sternocleidomastoid, I can think of
Yes, ma'am.
splenius, levator scapulae.
Yes, ma'am. I will just go on to the next slide because you answered all of them. So,
There are many, very many. I'm just trying to say, as therapists, muscles are what we breathe, muscles are what we work, and muscles are what we look at. So
yes.
the moment you say think of muscles and say, okay, these are the muscles I can think of. It can be anything. It can be, you can think of even pectoralis major, rhomboids. You can think of
Therapist.
trapezius, upper, middle, lower fibers. You can think of deltoid. Think of cervical spine. Envision what's happening. Think of the muscles. Oh, these are muscles around and along with the cervical spine. You have deep cervical extensors, you have long flexors, you have short flexors. Just say that, because we are all learning. So in Jan, just make this attempt. Let me be forthcoming and talk. Let me answer. So your learning would be much better than sitting quiet.
So thank you so much, ma'am. And here I move on with these muscles which ma'am said into details. So since we spoke about the shear forces, we will go on to the muscles posteriorly first, because they would be which would be combating your shear forces creating in the front anteriorly. Okay, so first, which is the most commonly that we see, is trapezius. Okay, trapezius bilaterally when it acts, it causes cervical extension, and unilaterally when you see trapezius, it causes lateral flexion and contralateral rotation of the head, which is most commonly seen. Second one which you see is levator scapulae. It is a scapular elevator and it causes also downward rotation of the scapula. Now that depends upon your shoulder stabilization. Okay, all this is quite important to get a chin tuck in a kid, also to know that which muscles we have to act upon to lengthen and which muscles we have to cause contraction or do facilitations into. Okay, so due to this, most of the times when you see that the trapezius is overacting, because it acts as a part of cervical extension when it causes the hyperextension at the cervical spine, and also it causes lateral flexion plus rotation at one side. Okay, then we move on to the splenius capitis and splenius cervicis. They are the prime movers of the head and neck because of their large cross-sectional part and a movement arm. The larger the cross-sectional part of the muscle, the larger is the movement arm, as you all know. So your splenius capitis and splenius cervicis cause bilateral extension and unilateral rotation on the same side. Okay. Then we move on to something that we all know probably. I hope you all know semispinalis capitis and semispinalis cervicis. It is as good as the multifidus in your lumbar spine. We often hear of the multifidus in lumbar spine, and that performs. Multifidus does what in lumbar spine? Two more important things: lumbar extension and rotation. So the same thing is performed by semispinalis capitis and semispinalis cervicis here. Okay. Then we come on to the longissimus capitis and longissimus cervicis. These are very small muscles. So when ma'am spoke about the frontal plane movement, these muscles, these are the two which act in the frontal plane. Okay, so now they are close to the axis of rotation when you move your cervical spine at C1, C2 and your lower cervical spine. So these are the frontal plane movements which take place. Okay, and when acting unilaterally, they cause lateral flexion. Okay, now something that we see into hyperextension and which are quite important when you give traction to a kid or when you act upon getting a chin tuck of a child and depressing the shoulder are your suboccipital muscles. Suboccipital muscles are rectus capitis posterior major and rectus capitis posterior minor, which are not there in this, but they are present. That there is superior oblique and there's inferior oblique. Okay, so they are your major cervical extensors at the occiput. Okay? Yeah. Now we go on to the lateral muscles. Okay. Lateral muscles are your two important things, majorly, which are very common: scalenus and your sternocleidomastoid. Scalenus cause, there are three parts of scalenus: the posterior, the middle, as well as the anterior part. Okay. Then comes your sternocleidomastoid. Okay, sternocleidomastoid. So both of these muscles are flexors when they act bilaterally, and when they act singularly, unilaterally, they cause ipsilateral, lateral flexion and contralateral rotation of the head. Okay, and last but not the least, we come on to the anterior part of the spine: longus capitis and longus colli. Okay, rectus capitis anterior and rectus capitis lateralis. Okay, these muscles cause a lot of anterior shear forces with your longitudinal ligament of the spine anteriorly. Okay. So here we are done with the muscles of the spine.
Anya, can you show them Malhar's video to correlate and we can talk about it?
To correlate with this, we have a case to show your Malhar's case. Can we just go on to the slide? So Malhar is a case of who came to us with a case of the torticollis. Okay, but he has different parts to it. So he is a
This one.
yeah. So he's a preterm 32 weeker. Currently, he is a 6-month-old. He's been coming to us for the past 4 months. He is a low birth weight of 1.6 kgs, planned natural conception. He had a history of the oligohydramnios. He did not cry immediately after birth, and he had a NICU stay of 15 days. So he had come to us with the chief complaints of torticollis from the pediatrician.
I beg your pardon. He did not come to us basically for torticollis. He had come for an assessment, right? And then we discovered the father said after that ki the neck is also kept on one side. So he is developing a left-sided asymmetry. So they didn't feel a torticollis. They said ki the neck is being kept to one side, right? So that's the complaint with which he had come. So just coming to this, he can roll to supine and prone. Where is his video? I would like them to see his video. Why is it not coming? Yeah, here. So that's Malhar. Just see him and now relate to the muscles which he was talking about. And now each of you all have to tell me what is happening in his cervical spine and his rib cage and also in his shoulder girdle. Let's keep aside the diagnosis of torticollis. Don't call him torticollis. Just see what's happening. And just put your observations there. First observation, definitely there's a tilt.
नाही तो पाय हलवतो ना जसं व्हिडिओ हलव तुझे पाय जरा
चल पुढे चल पाव पाव कर
कर परत
This is an excellent video. Excellent video. So what was happening? Especially in this, there is so much that he is telling you.
You can look at which arm moves, which leg moves, where is the neck,
Shoulders
belly.
are elevated, right upper movements or upper limb movements are restricted. So now correlate. Do you have a prone video, Sukanya?
Yes, ma'am, there are prone also. Yeah, and
In
prone is
this presentation?
no, but it can be directly shown from the drive also.
You want me to
Okay.
show?
Yeah, that would be good. Let's discuss him because it's very interesting with the muscles what she mentioned. It would be good.
And can you stop sharing?
Yeah. I'm looking at stop share. Yeah, I found it. See, I was dumbfounded how to stop share.
You'll have to give me permission to share.
Mihika. Why can't I see you, Mihika? Haan, you're.
She can just do it as a
Yeah. I made you the co-host. You can share.
Okay. You can see my screen.
Yes. Please keep the diagnosis of torticollis aside when we are discussing this boy. I saw him. Okay.
Just 1 minute, ma'am.
It was their baby of Swati, Malhar.
Yes,
It was
yes.
named as baby of Swati.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know why I can't see.
I just saw it somewhere. So when you all saw till she searches for the videos, uh, yeah, there he is. But
Yeah.
prone nahi hai, that's all. Prone nahi hai.
But we need a
In
pro,
that
ma'am, right?
list, it is there. In that folder, it is there.
So guys, till the
Okay, wait.
time she
I'll search.
searches.
You carry on. Yeah.
So what is happening in the cervical spine? Why am I saying keep torticollis, keep the diagnosis of torticollis aside? Any chats? Neck movements are much restricted. That happens in torticollis also. Yeah, there you see him. You'll get to know now why I'm saying this. This is so interesting. So now you think of what muscles she was describing to you all. See, I wish it was without the bunion, but it's okay. It's a home video. It's a natural video. That's amazing. And we thank the parents for sending us these because you can actually see what he is doing.
मल्हार मल्हार माझ्या हातात फोन नाही आहे माझ्या हातात फोन नाहीये माझ्या हातात फोन नाहीये मी व्हिडिओ पण नाही काढत आहे कोण आहे आई आहे आई आई जमत नाही जरा किती होता तो तू जाऊन
We are completely talking of musculoskeletal. Only one arm comes forward, okay? Fine. What else? Good observation. Any other videos, Mihika, which we can show them?
Ma'am, there is mild truncal asymmetry.
Good. There is mild truncal asymmetry, which was seen even in the
rotation.
standing video. You could also see when he was standing, his feet were sort of in a
On the toe.
plantarflexed position.
Yes. This one?
This video, he was standing with a little bit of plantar flexion. You can also see the girth. I don't know why you all did
Yes,
not notice the girth.
the left leg.
हॅलो तुझे पाय जरा
You can also see the girth on the rib cage. Yeah,
Yes.
Mandar, there is definitely an asymmetric trunk.
भाकर परत
Show me one more video. Go back to his folder. There are much more beautiful videos which were taken, which can show. Go down. Go down. Okay, this one, the second one where he is there. Just show that one. Up, go up, and the second video.
This one? Is this the one?
Yeah, you can show this one also. This one is also showing a lot.
असं त्याला थोडंसं गालाला हातला.
So these were his earlier videos, okay? The ones which you saw were his recent videos.
बाबूला आजी येतं माझ्या.
How is he communicating Sukanya now? What do you feel? How is his communication?
He babbles well now, properly. He babbles, and in this there is a sort of grunt that we see.
Yeah, right. So there's a little compromise of his ribcage muscles, and if you go back to what Sukanya had discussed, the muscles which are spanning across to the cervical spine act as stabilizers for the ribcage. You know, so if you have the cervical spine muscles up there shortened onto one side, automatically your expansion of the rib cage which is on the same side will be affected, and that's exactly what he was showing. Now suppose we had not worked on him holistically, but had worked only for the cervical rotations and transition, not for transitions or for weight shifts, we would not have got what Sukanya is saying now, a good communication, a good voice from him, right? So definitely he has truncal asymmetry. He has, if you can see, the girth on one side which is lesser than the girth on the opposite side. I feel there is a weakness of the muscles which is seen on the distal aspect, which I could see in the legs, and I could see in the hands also. So for me, I've been constantly behind the father. Please take an appointment with Dr. Anaita. So I think we have reached 155, and before we break, I will like to show you the type of mobilizations which I could give in such a child. I have one good model with me, so I'm catching hold of her and I'm thanking her for that. So that's the reason we moved. Come, lie down with your head on this side. On this side. Supine on your back, head on this side. So I hope you can see what I'm doing with Latifa. Come back. So whenever you're mobilizing, or whenever you are examining the range of motion in a cervical spine, very important that the child should be well supported in the cranium. Okay, so don't do cervical movements holding the neck. You have to support your hands, fingers have to be on the occipital protuberance, your middle finger supporting the cervical spine. You support your head with your thumb and then move with the child. Don't do this. Okay, move with the child and see that the child completely relaxes. Second thing what I would say is stabilization. So you should have someone stabilizing the shoulder, someone, the mother or the therapist, and many of us don't understand the importance of stabilization. Even if I call the therapist, they'll push. I don't want to push, I want a distraction. So when we say stabilization, it means distraction. So it is sort of, yes, shimming the trapezius down and holding the trapezius there. Okay, so this stabilization, stabilizing the neck well with your hands on the occipital protuberance, your fingers going down, and then now we don't have anyone to stabilize her here. Come off the bed, come off the bed. So always range has to be seen outside the plinth. Stabilize, distract, in neutral, don't do this when you're distracting, and then slowly see how much range is available. Okay, And all throughout, what I usually do is I hold the child's head in between me and myself. So it is there, it is this, and it is this. So if I'm standing, it comes into my tummy. Now that I'm sitting down for your convenience, slowly go to whatever range, distract very slightly and give the range. And distract and give the range. Go to only, get up. Go to only one, grade 1 or grade 2 maximum, not more than that. Okay? Clear? Clear about stabilization? Clear about how to give distraction, how your fingers should be on the cervical spine and not just holding the neck and going up and down. So that is the way we start with cervical mobilizations. That's the way we start with stabilization. And first stabilize and then look at what's available. Stabilize the head between yourself and the surface down. Don't attempt to do single, just stand there and do more. You have to be completely moving with the child. Clear? So I think we'll need to stop here because it is 1:58. I give you all this homework. Each of you all are going to take 2 muscles, read about their actions and come back time. Okay? Any 2 muscles of the cervical spine, pick up and come back. And I hope it was interesting. It was interesting to me because I learned a lot. Thank you, Latifa. Say thanks to her. Must have.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Latifa.
Latifa.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Latifa. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, can I disappear? Because I have to go to Vadala.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.